Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin. I'm here with my co-host, James Haskell. And this is going to be a video about a topic that's a little bit strange, I guess. We had the news break. I think it was late last night, early this morning. At some point, TMZ broke the news that Earl Thomas, safety for your Ravens, was held at gunpoint by his wife after she allegedly caught him in bed with multiple women, or at least one other woman, and held him at gunpoint until he was able to wrestle the gun away from her. And then when cops arrived, he was seen running with the weapon as she was chasing him to try and either get it back. I think she might have had a knife.
That point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at that point she had a knife and she was chasing him. So really disturbing story, but let's talk about the fact that thank goodness she didn't pull the trigger, because apparently she had removed the clip and thought that the gun would not be able to fire. So she had her finger on the trigger and safety off, and there was a bullet in the chamber that she was not aware of. So first of all, thank goodness we aren't getting the news that Earl Thomas was shot and killed overnight, or whenever this happened. I think the news broke last night, but this happened a few weeks ago or something like that. So thank goodness we didn't get that story, that he was accidentally killed during the heat of the moment when she didn't realize she could fire. So obviously very dangerous, playing with a gun and all. I mean, playing whatever it was. She had a gun. It could have gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, because there was still a bullet in the chamber.
Yeah,
that she didn't realize.
A lot of people think if you pull the clip out, that a gun can't fire, but if that gun was cocked, there's a bullet in that chamber, and I think some guns can't be fired with the clip removed, but the majority can. I mean, I'm no gun expert, but yeah, I mean, so I guess let me say this. I mean, obviously, horribly embarrassing for Earl, and we're not going to come on here and laugh at his horribly embarrassing moment that he's got to deal with and answer questions about. And I'm sure on the field he's going to hear about it during the heat of some trash talk between opponents. So, but what I want to talk about is he didn't get arrested. She was arrested. So he's not facing, as far as I know, any legal ramifications as of yet, unless the DA, I believe, decides to pull up some type of charge on him. But right now, no legal issues for him. Is there a chance that he could still face some sort of punishment from the commissioner, do you think? Are you worried that this could affect him in games this season?
Yeah, I'm not, to be honest with you, as far as a suspension goes, because like you said, as weird as it is based on the circumstances to say, from a technical standpoint, if I'm understanding it correctly, he's more the victim than anything. And in fact, when the cops showed up, he took the gun from her to defend himself, and then was he was fleeing from her to preserve his life, theoretically, right?
Yes.
So, and I'm not saying, that she was going to, like you said, that she was going to pull the trigger or anything like that, but that was his thought at the time, right? He wanted to defend himself from.
Well, he could have just thought that she would, out of ignorance, pull the trigger, assuming it wouldn't fire. And, it just reminds me of the Goodfellas. The scene from Goodfellas when he wakes up and his wife is straddled him and has his gun in his own face. And, of course, he has the famous, I got to deal with being whacked on the street and I got to come home to this. I mean, it just made me immediately think of that moment. But she could have just assumed that when she removed the clip, it was harmless, and she could have killed him. I mean, it's scary stuff. And then when the cops arrived, they see a man running with a gun and a woman running with a knife, and so they drew their weapons and ordered them to the ground, and luckily they complied and there was no incident, but it could have gotten wild there. I mean, you just never know when there's a guy running with a gun and a woman running with a knife, how cops would respond. Everybody like to say that they'd respond this way and that way in situation, the fire, I'd run in, I'd save everyone. But we honestly don't know how we will react in moments of crazy stress until we're in those moments. I'd like to say I'd dive in front of a bullet for my wife, but I honestly do not know for sure what I would do until I'm faced with that reality.
Right. Yeah, it was just a really tough situation for Earl, for his family. More than anything, all we can hope for is healing for them, right? And hopefully some privacy to work out their
And
obvious
social media, that's not easy.
right. There are obvious issues. I also hope. Look, this is just me as a Ravens fan. I hope that, man, this is really secondary to their situation. But you like to think, or you like to hope that it doesn't do anything as far as, that we are able to mitigate the distraction that is right now Earl Thomas, and that will inevitably be talked about as we get closer and closer to the season. And who knows, maybe this thing will die down by the time that, maybe it's a blessing that COVID-19 is a thing right now, because it's not a blessing. Excuse me. Let me take that back. What I'm saying is that based on the fact that media and teams aren't together and they're not able to gather and there's not going to be press in the near future, it could help
help it die down.
Right. To make distance between it and so the future time and what happened, to put some distance between that time.
Well, I think that you're right. That's key. But I think the key to whether this can be kind of just fade away, as long as, everything else, nothing else comes of it, is the fact that in the report it says that a woman was shooting a video with her cell phone of the incident and has the incident on film where she is pointing the gun at Earl's head and can apparently clearly see that her finger was on the trigger and that the safety was disengaged. And that also, before the video closes, apparently you can see Earl's wife, Nina, striking Earl in the nose before so if that video, which we know how videos are, I mean, we saw the horrible reality with Ray Rice when there was no video, then there was a portion of the video, then the full video, and how all that changed the punishment for Ray. I mean, he thought he was getting this suspension. Remember, originally the commissioner came out, I think, with like a 4-game suspension. And then there was the outpour of, the media was crazy. They got killed for just that little bit of a suspension. And then the video came out, and then it really got bad for Ray. And they ended up having to get, to suspend him indefinitely. And ultimately, he never played another down. So if there's a video that ultimately gets released and it has anything on there that we're not prepared to see, like if maybe Earl did more than what we're originally hearing. Maybe there was some sort of a physical altercation. If there's anything showing Earl as anything but a victim, this could be a big problem for Earl's playing days, and at least in the beginning of the season, which we just talked about the schedule. Week 3 is the Chiefs. I certainly, selfishly as a Ravens fan, I want to see Earl out there. But so I think that video is going to determine the severity of his punishment, because we know punishments can come out and then that video can come out 2 days later and that whole punishment can get scrapped and changed immediately.
Yeah, I tell you what. Yeah, this is really interesting because it's unprecedented in the details of the incident, right? In other issues, there's been a baseline to go by. Not that Roger Goodell goes by a baseline or previous, his previous cases or whatever, but there's been some reference points to use in this scenario where Earl is once again the victim, if you will, for lack of a better term. It's really a weird one because he gets suspended for damaging, for
embarrassing the league.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like damaging its reputation, just sheer stupidity and embarrassing the league. Right. Yeah. So now the only reason I think that won't happen is because there could have been a lot of times where other guys got suspended, not for the same exact scenario, but for similar situations, and it just didn't end up happening. But you never know.
The video's key. If the video ever makes its way out, we know with Ray. Look, we heard about previous players doing far worse in the report than what as horrible as what Ray Rice did. I mean, the video made it so much worse seeing him actually hit her. Right. Where we heard claims of, I remember when Greg Hardy got his second chance with the Cowboys after he was in the report claimed that he was body slamming the woman on top of a bunch of guns on top of a sofa. Yeah, and beating her.
It's insane.
What's that?
He's strangling her and everything. It's just crazy.
Yeah, but when we hear it, for some reason, it just is way worse when we see it. So we saw that with the Ray Rice stuff. I mean, as horrible as what he was, we've heard reports of way worse, and it got swept under the rug, and we saw those guys back out. But because we had the video of Ray, he never played another down. So if a video comes out, that's the only way. I mean, I don't know. I could see him getting a game out of sheer embarrassment. If no video comes out, I could still see Commish, since he has ultimate power, saying, you know what, you were behavior detrimental to the Shield or whatever, however way they word it. I could see them sitting him for one game just to say, you can't do. I don't know. I could see one game though.
No, I'm with you. I could envision that. If I had to bet, I don't think, unless, like you said, there's other details that come out with that video, or he got extra physical after, whatever the case may be. There's a myriad of things that we could say that this video could display. But I do want to ask you this. I think it's a foregone conclusion that this video will come out. How long is it going to take?
With these videos, they always end up coming out at the worst possible time for the person in the video for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just, the people who leak it relish in that or whatever it is, but it always seems to come out at the worst time. I remember the Laramie Tunsil, of course not to this, but Laramie Tunsil, when did that video come out? 20 minutes before he was going to be selected in the draft. It always comes out at the worst possible moment. So to me, it'll probably be right before the season starts. It'll be a time where everyone's thinking one direction, and then boom, here comes this video, and then it's a media, storm. So I think it'll be close to the beginning of the regular season is when it'll pop up.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because if it's one of her friends and the video is really detrimental to her, not saying that Earl wasn't in the wrong, but obviously you can't point a gun at someone's head. So if the video,
if you want to, even if they've been doing something low down and dirty,
right, exactly. So you have to think that at some point, based on, because the other thing that plays in here is that if her case will inevitably go to court, but it's her against the state. I hope that people understand that it's not her against Earl. Earl can't be like, oh, drop all the charges, because I'm sure he'd love to. Right, but he cannot do that. It is her against the state. And so inevitably, I think that video will end up being subpoenaed. Right? So once it gets subpoenaed, somehow TMZ always has a way of figuring out everything that the police have.
Yeah. They got the hookup inside.
Got the inside man. So, I think it's a really unfortunate video. Definitely, I don't think this was our funnest video. But I think as a Ravens channel, we had to talk about it. And as far as football goes, I hope that it doesn't affect the locker room too much. And I know this is secondary to, his kids, their relationship, and all that stuff. But I still hope that, it doesn't have a ripple effect into the locker room, and he's able to come back and play if he's not deemed, suspended.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the locker room, because Earl, I've heard some stories. We had the guy Dunigan or Dunk. What's the guy we had on for Seattle that covers Seattle for The Athletic?
I don't remember his name, but yeah, from Seattle.
Yeah, but he said that Earl had a good sense of humor, and that a lot of times the media or the fans don't always get to see that. They see more of the serious side of him. Well, I think we're going to test his sense of humor, or at least his buddies in the locker room will test his sense of humor, because there's no doubt in my mind that this will be joked upon in the locker. I mean, so we're going to see his sense of humor, and you're right. I think it could, if somebody he maybe doesn't have that close a relationship, wisecracks about a very serious situation because it was made so public. If he gets wisecracked on, it could cause some sort of tension in between players. I could see that coming up. I could see somebody joking with him and him not thinking it's very funny,
right.
And that becoming an issue internally that hopefully doesn't snowball into something bigger. But it's possible. So I think that's a good point.
Well, that's all for us, guys. I don't think we're going to belabor the point too much. Not necessarily what we have the most fun talking about, but we do want to call your attention to a couple things. We want to recommend that you guys take a look at our season, our schedule breaking episode where we break down the schedule of the season. Glenn is predicting us to go 16-0.
Yeah, buddy.
And so make sure you check it out. Also, give us your opinion. What do you think the chances are that Earl is going to be suspended? If you think he's going to be suspended, what is the requisite amount of games? But either way, leave your comments below, and make sure to subscribe, and we'll be back soon.
See you.